Alright, I might as well try to film some of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a natural fiber manila sling for my half-scale trebuchet. Now the machine has a long side of the throwing arm that's going to be about 19 feet long. So I'm shooting for a sling that at maximum extension will be about that long. And we're going to be throwing bowling balls, 16-pound bowling balls. So I did a test yesterday, and I made this one. It's a hand sling for throwing tennis balls. Here's the finger loop. This is the end. And this is 1/4 inch diameter sisal. Now what I did is I cut it into 2 lengths, and I spliced each length into the other length to make this little pocket here. So that way the main cord itself is as thin as possible. It's only one thickness. You've got, basically 2 thicknesses here where the splice is. But it's better than this earlier attempt I did, which is just a total mess. I won't even attempt to show that to you because it's a disaster. It's off screen here, but it's not worth evaluating. This is a far better idea. So you splice the one into the other to get the right size, and then you go through with a smaller diameter cordage and you weave this net. Now one thing I haven't perfected yet is how to splice in the smaller stuff for the net. What I did is I took it in a bite and I spliced in the 2 ends, so the middle's in here somewhere. So I did 1 and then 2, so that gave me 4 cords in the net. And then I went through with just a single strand, the 5th strand, and I sewed the net together on each side. And this is just this basic net making technique outlined on slinging.org. And I'll have to link that below. And so this, for the tennis ball, works pretty well. Very happy with it. So today I'm trying the full scale thing. And we're going to be using 3/4 inch diameter manila. It's 3/4 inch manila. This is what's left. This is I bought a 100-foot roll. This is 50 feet of it, because I just cut the other 50 feet off and then cut that 50 feet in half, and you'll have seen how I did that. So now I have 2 lengths, 25 feet long, of 3/4 inch manila, and I'm going to splice the 2 together to make that opening, and then I'll proceed to weave in 1/4 inch manila to make the net. And I'll try to film as much as this as possible so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I've got my 2 different sections of the main cord. Now I've determined from making the net on the tennis ball that you want the width of a net to be about the same as the diameter of the projectile, and then you want the length of the net to be about twice the width. So in the case of a tennis ball, the tennis ball is 2.7 something inches diameter according to Google. My net's about 3 inches wide, 6 inches long. It's actually a little bit shallow, but I'll try to rectify this on this one. That you can adjust by the weaving of the net itself. So here with the big cord, diameter of a bowling ball is about 8.5 inches. Call it 9, maybe. Then you'd want the length of your net to be about 18 inches. But I want to go just a little bit oversized here, just to make sure it stays in. So I've picked a nice round number. I want my net to be 2 feet long. And it's going to be about 10 to 12 inches wide, I think. And I think that should work really well. It might be a little bit big for what I like, but it'll keep it in there. And I think there's always the chance of going through and shrinking the net portion itself. I don't know. I'm hoping I don't have to do that. But we're going to go with 2 feet long, 10 to 12 inches wide. So what I've done is I've got the 2 different cords. Here's this end. There's that other end. And I've tied a constrictor knot 1 foot down. I'm accounting 1 foot for the splice. So I've got constrictor knots on both 1 feet from the end. I've overlapped them with about 2 feet. Let's see here. Yeah, yep. So 4 feet total, the 1 foot overlaps, and then a good 2 feet in the middle. So if you do a little bit of visualization here, you can kind of cross them and open it a bit. I think that'll work pretty well. So let's get that out of the way. And what we're going to do, let's start with this guy, because he's being a bit finicky here. The rope came twisted and kinked from the factory, which is frustrating. So, let's see here. So there's my 2 feet layout. So I want to splice him into here at about here. So I'll just take that, hold that in my hand. Now I'm gonna have to undo this. Shouldn't be too hard. Pretty sloppy whipping job. There we go. Garbage. Undoing my strands. Alright, let's see here. That's about right. Yeah. Okay, so the leftmost is the first strand I'm going to put in. That's about my 2 feet. And you always want to splice against the lay of the rope. So I'm going to be opening that, going this way. Here's the tail end. This is the standing end. And here comes the first tuck. It's getting me a little bit more of this to work with. Okay. And I'm going to do what Brian Toss calls the pro splice. This is just like an eye splice. In his book, The Rigger's Apprentice. So he does the two first tucks. And then he comes around and does the middle tuck. And then he goes under and does the back tuck. Now, if you're looking at this close, it looks like shit. So I'm going to pull it pretty tight here. Cinch it down. Okay. Just kind of twist it a bit, play with it, work at it. Okay. Alright. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. We got the first tuck, the middle tuck, and the back tuck. So, according to Matthew Otto at the Rigging Loft, Manila rope only needs 3 tucks, and then you can start to taper it out. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'll start with my back tuck. Now, let's see here. As I'm getting in, I want to try to lay the rope flat. That's probably pretty good. The strands that you're splicing in, you want them to lay flat. Let's see here. Okay. I'm not doing the greatest job here. This is actually the biggest diameter rope I've spliced so far. I'm usually working with nylon. Okay, it's not too bad. Now we'll continue. So that's tuck number 2. Here goes tuck number 3. Let's try to get this one nice and flat. Okay. Whoa, hold on. There's tuck 3 part 2. Here's the back tuck. Just trying to hold this open. It would really help to have a fid. Okay. All right, so yeah, that seems pretty solid. So what I'm going to do now is I'll continue tucking, but I'm going to start to weave out some strands. So I'm going to start with this pesky one. Let's see how many strands we got here. I think it's about 12. So we could leave out 4 and then do 2 more tucks. Or we could leave out 3. I'm going to play it a bit more safe. I'm going to leave out 3 and do 3 more tucks. Okay. There's 1. I think that's just the one big strand there. Okay, anyway. Okay. Now for the back tuck. And we're weaving out the strands that are on the top. So the ones that are closest to the original splice. Yep. Okay. I'm actually running out of length here. Wow. I might only have enough length for one more tuck. In that case, let's just split the remaining half. That seems about right. Okay. There's that. That. Now we just have the back tuck to do. Okay. All right. So it looks like trash, and it's bleeding strands everywhere, but I think that's pretty solid. I'm going to play with it a bit more, and then I'm going to trim the strands about a 1/2 inch or so from the line. I'm going to leave them a little bit long. I'm just going to try to get rid of the mess, then I'll come back to you. All right, so I've trimmed the ends a bit. I took off the constrictor knot. I cut them about 1 inch from the line, actually. I could have done like 1.5 inches. When you're doing this, you always want to leave more than you think, because the ends kind of get sucked in. And if you cut them too short, you're at risk of them coming out a turn, which then kind of messes everything up. So I'm cutting it a bit close here, but hopefully it should be fine. And overall, it's looking really good, I think. So, we've laid that out down there. Here's our new, let's see, making sure all the twists and stuff are out of this first. Okay. All right. Now, here's our other end, our another constrictor knot. There's the nice clean end you get when you hammer a knife through it. So, I want it to be about 2 feet. I want to make sure both lines are pretty even. So, I think I'll come in about here. Okay, well, first thing we need to do is undo this. So. Okay. So we've got our left, middle, and our right. Let's line this up again. Yeah, I want to open it up right here. Okay. I think I'm going to time lapse this next part. All right. I'm glad I time-lapsed that other side because I don't know if you could tell, but it was very difficult. I don't know what initially I mismatched it a little bit, but now it's pretty well and even, so that's good. I had a bit more trouble getting it to lay flat, so it's not as nice of a splice as the first one I filmed. I flipped it over to the underside of the splice as opposed to, well, let's see here. This is the top side of the splice. This is the underside. That's what I want. So you can see the back tuck. It's a little bit flatter on this side, and I think this will be the best side to have it fold up and cup the projectile. So as you can see, I'm having so many problems with this thing, kind of the rope twisting on me. But if you just try to use it like this, it slips out and around. So the purpose of the net really isn't the net's not so much holding it. The net is just keeping these two things from spreading apart. And I think if you really do it right, these two things kind of grip it, and the net just keeps them from coming apart. See, it's so slippery that you can't really work like that. So, all right, I need to think about the next step a little bit more before I do anything. So I'm unspooling the 100-foot length of 1/4 inch, and I wanted to show this to you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this has been spooled anti-clockwise. So I'm pretending to put it back on like it was. You see I'm putting it on anti-clockwise, and I'm taking it off clockwise, which is backwards, because it's right lay rope. And if you look at the bottom here, you can tell it's been coiled anti-clockwise. So the factory that's putting them in these little coils is inducing the twist and kinks in the rope because they're coiling it in the wrong direction, which is basic rope coiling knowledge. So it's very strange and disappointing, and I had this problem on the 3/4 inch rope too from the same manufacturer. So as I undo this, I'm having to undo all the kinks and untwist it to try to get it to lay straight. Alright, I'm back. It's been quite a while actually. So I took the 100 feet of quarter-inch and I laid it all out and I measured out four 25-foot segments. Two of those segments I found the middle of and tied a constrictor knot around. So that's the middle of a 25 segment. There's the middle of a 25 segment. Here's another one, and then there's the extra one. So the plan is to use the two that I've marked the middle. I'm going to come in at the middle, out at the top, inner splice it to there, and then I'll weave it around the outsides, and then I'll splice it through the end, and then we'll see how much extra I have. Hopefully I have a lot of extra. 25 divided by 2 is 12 and a half. So I've got 12 feet worth of line to go through about 4 feet worth of stuff, which should be plenty. I'll probably end up with a bunch of extra, and I'll try to tell you how much extra so you know better how much line this takes for next time. I'm really just guessing. Hopefully I'm guessing high. So yeah, that's the plan. I'll take the one in and I'll do it, and then I'll take the other end from the other side, and then instead of weaving it around the outside, I'll weave it through that first row of nets. And then when those two are done, I'll have 4 lines through here, and then I'll take the 5th one and I'll weave it just straight through, and I'll close up those nets and then take it out. I've been thinking a lot about how to splice this in, and it might be kind of stupid what I'm doing, because when I'm weaving it through, I'm weaving through the full thickness of the quarter-inch twice over basically. But that's what I did on my prototype, so I'm going to stick with it. You could probably take all 5 lines and cut them. I could probably cut it at the halfway part and then undo it and then splice them in. Actually, like, undo the 3 strands of each quarter-inch and then take those through, but not sure about that. So I'm going to stick with what I've done, and we'll see how much bulkier it makes this entry here. When I did my prototype, one of the flaws is I weaved the net with jute. I'm not sure what the diameter of this jute is, but it's less than 1/3 of the diameter of the main. So this is pretty small diameter jute basically, and it didn't really increase the size of this splice much at all. But here I'm using 3/4 line and 1/4 line, and I think in terms of relativity, the 1/4 here is thicker than the jute I used over there. But if you look at this, you'd expect the 3 strands of 3/4 line to each be quarter-inch. They're not really. I think they're a little bit bigger. Or maybe they're just kind of laying flat. I don't know. So basically I'm weaving in the equivalent of 1 strand 3 times through each side. No, that's wrong. 5 times. So I'm going to weave in another 5/4 of an inch. Ooh, that is a lot, isn't it? It is looking kind of thick. I don't know. I'll think about this and come back to you. Anyway, I've determined that the handle of this hammer should make a pretty good net gauge, I think. So I'm going to use that as my net gauge. Okay, so I've decided I'm going to try to do it the way I did it on the small sling. I'm going to weave through the full 1/4 thickness, and we'll just see how this goes and how thick it ends up. I think it's just going to be a lot easier than trying to do it the other way, which would get kind of tedious. So let's just see how this works. Okay, I've finished the first round. I have a bunch of extra. Let's see how much. I have about 7 feet extra. That's ridiculous, actually. Wow. So, out of 12 and a half minus 7. So I only needed about 5 or 6 feet to do what I did, and I allotted about 12 or 13. Alright, here it is. Now you'll notice there's a bit of a gap here in the middle, and a lot of the stress is going on just a couple of these lines. But, you know, if anything breaks, I guess I'll just have to fix it. A lot of the knots capsized. They're supposed to be sheet bends, but they've turned into overhand knots. And I can't figure out a way to prevent that. It seems like it's inevitable, basically. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I've done a double constrictor knot on each side where the splicing starts. All of this did get pretty darn messy, and I hope it's structurally sound. I kind of lied about the fact that the big cords are taking all the weight. The big cords are not really taking all the weight, it's the netting. But darn, if I may say so, the size of the net turned out really well. It's not too small, and I don't think it's too big either. See, look at that though. Look at these two spaces. I'm really trusting these little lines. So I'll just, we'll have to do periodic inspections, make sure none of the little netting lines are wearing through. And check it out as I kind of roll it through the pouch. I don't think there's any way this will get caught in the pouch. It's gonna come out, basically. But also, like, if the pouch is not perfectly centered, it's still in there, you know? So, hopefully this works out well in practical testing. One thing I have yet to do is do the ends. I need a really big, thick gauge metal ring. And then I'll tie loops with taut line hitches so we can adjust the length of the various sides. One thing I might do is serve the splicing probably with this jute. Not sure if I want to bother to do that right now though, because that'll take a while. I don't have any kind of serving tool for that. If I had a good serving tool to make that go faster, that would definitely be worth serving. In fact, it's probably almost a necessity given what I'm going to do to it. So I'll probably do that later this evening if I can figure out some way to make it go relatively quickly. One thing I'm worried about is it's probably heavier than the old sling. The main cords here are 3/4 inch manila, and they have a working load rating that's pretty much the same as 1/2 inch nylon, which is what this is. There's the canvas pouch in here. But I'm sure if I was to coil this all up, it would weigh a lot more than this. Not sure how much though, I might have to quantify that at some point. Yeah, I'll probably serve the splices, and then I'll need to go buy a new metal ring. And the metal ring is what slips off the pin. The other end will be chain anchored to the tip of the arm, the standing end. So, but yeah, overall it looks a lot better than the initial one I made. I kept this the inside because this is the back side of the main splice. So this side has all the crap going on. So it's got a natural tendency to cup on the one side. So you wouldn't want to put the bowling ball in from this side. You put it in from this side. You'll be able to tell that. I'll mark it somehow. But yeah, can't wait to shoot with it. Time to finish it, and then I'll report back. One thing I do need to document real quick is how much extra cordage I used in the net. outer row, I allotted 25 feet for a double, so 12 and a half feet to go over about a 2-foot net with a foot on each side. So I allotted 3 times the distance, and basically you only need to allot 2 times the distance, and that's on the outer row, because I had about 7 feet extra. On the medium rows, let's see here. Is this right? 2 of these should be the same length. Yeah, okay. On the medium rows, I did the same thing, 25 feet for double. So 12 and a half feet to go the 4 feet. I had less extra, because the medium rows, you actually start tying the knots. So how much extra did I have here? It's less than 6 feet. Hold on. It's about 4 feet extra. Yeah, so on the middle rows, 4 feet extra. On the outer rows, 7 feet extra. From a total of about 12 feet to go about 4 feet. And then on the middle row, I allotted a full 25 feet because it's doing double knots, one on each side, kind of zigzagging. And 25 feet was way too much. So let's see here. Let's measure it in arm spans. It's about 2 arm spans, so 12, call it 12 feet. So literally twice as much as I needed. But that was just one strand, and I used up about 12 feet. As opposed to the other ones where one strand used up about, 8 feet in the middle rows? So you definitely need to account for more cordage as you get to the inside of the net, I think. Because the initial rows are just doing loops. The middle rows are tying 1 knot each. The central row is doing the 2 knot zigzag, and that one needs a lot of cordage. So yeah.